Welcome to Quicksand, the most important news in pharma and biotech this week. Given the ethical challenges of using a placebo in randomized controlled clinical trials for therapies to treat hematologic malignancy and oncologic disease, the FDA recommends that a sponsor use a placebo-controlled design only in select circumstances, according to new draft guidance. Such circumstances include where surveillance is standard of care or where specific trial design features, such as if the trial uses an add-on design, when the endpoints intended to support a labeling claim has a high degree of subjectivity, such as patient-reported outcomes. And when considering the use of a placebo control, FDA says sponsors should provide a rationale for the trial design and a detailed description in the protocol and statistical analysis plan of the proposal for blinding and unblinding. FDA also recommends that sponsors unblind the patient at the time of documented disease recurrent or progression to ensure optimal patient management. FDA also recommends unblinding the patient and investigator when the patient has an adverse event suspected to be related to the investigational drug product and for which management of the adverse event with one or more drug products with substantial toxicity or invasive procedures is being considered. In such cases of unblinding, the patient should not be removed from the trial. In terms of the practical and ethical concerns related to using placebos in some oncology trials, FDA notes that in many cases, because of the toxicity of the active treatment, patients and investigators may know if they are receiving a placebo treatment. The FDA published draft guidance to help drug, device, and biologic sponsors develop products to treat the underlying pathophysiology and structural progression of osteoarthritis. The 3-page draft features background information on how the agency has relied on patient-reported outcomes and approvals, as well as 3 bulleted considerations for development. Approvals for osteoarthritis to date have been based on patient-reported outcome measures that assess pain and function. However, treatments that inhibit structural damage or target the underlying pathophysiology associated with osteoarthritis remain elusive and represents an unmet medical need, the draft notes. As far as considerations, FDA says it's currently unclear what magnitude of change in structural endpoints would translate to a clinically meaningful benefit to patients. Thus, no structural endpoints have been used for traditional or accelerated approval in osteoarthritis to date. But the ultimate goal, according to the draft, is related to inhibiting structural damage or targeting the underlying pathophysiology associated with osteoarthritis to avoid or significantly delay the complications of joint failure and the need for joint replacement, and also to reduce the deterioration of function and worsening of pain. FDA also said it welcomes efforts to address considerations including the ability of treatments to impact common measures of structural progression to reliably predict treatment effects on direct measures of how patients function and feel. The FDA finalized guidance to help sponsors of microdose radiopharmaceutical diagnostic drugs on the non-clinical studies recommended to support human clinical trials and marketing applications. The 7-page guidance defines a diagnostic radiopharmaceutical as a drug that is intended for use in the diagnosis or monitoring of the disease or a manifestation of the disease in humans and that exhibits spontaneous disintegration of unstable nuclei with the emission of nuclear particles or photons, or any non-radioactive kit or nuclide generator that is intended to be used in the preparation of such a drug. FDA notes that these are drugs that are used in nuclear medicine procedures, including planar imaging, single photon emission computed tomography, positron emission tomography, and in combination with other radiation detection probes. The guidance also explains microdosing for radiopharmaceutical diagnostic drugs as less than or equal to 100 micrograms. FDA says because these diagnostic drugs are administered using a dose at the low end of the dose-response curve, dose-related adverse events are unlikely to occur. The agency recommends that sponsors tailor the amount and type of non-clinical supporting data to account for the low potential for adverse events. The FDA finalized draft guidance that provides manufacturers of chewable tablets with current thinking on the critical quality attributes that should be assessed during the development of these drugs. The draft guidance, released in June, comes as FDA has warned that for numerous approved chewable tablets, companies have not evaluated critical quality attributes such as hardness, disintegration, and dissolution as may have been warranted. Specifically, the agency says that some applications contained insufficient data on quality attributes or used widely ranging values that were not justified as acceptance criteria. The guidance discusses the Chewing Difficulty Index, a new quality attribute concept that was developed internally, the findings of which were published in a peer-reviewed journal. Even companies with already approved chewable tablets should re-evaluate their products' critical quality attributes, as the agency said it will take appropriate action to alleviate the risk to public health posed by any tablets that do not meet FDA's quality expectations. In support of an ongoing effort to increase transparency, Health Canada intends to implement 5 proposals related to prescription drugs and biologics by October 1st. The proposals come from the Health Products and Food Branch as part of 2 2015 transparency initiatives for drugs, biologics, and medical devices. The Regulatory Decision Summary Initiative provides explanations for regulatory decisions to approve or reject the sale of certain medical products, whereas the Submissions Under Review list informs Canadians as to whether a drug product has been accepted for review in Canada, the regulatory authority said in a notice. The first proposal involves publishing regulatory decision summaries for the final positive and negative decisions on generic drug submissions and on supplemental abbreviated new drug submissions that the branch considers to be of interest to stakeholders. Proposals 2 and 3 involve publishing a submission under review list for generic drug submissions and publishing regulatory decision summaries for final positive decisions on supplemental new drug submissions. Other proposals involved listing of the company's name of submissions currently under review and the class of submissions accepted for pre-market review. Thank you for listening to Quicksand, episode 44, August 27th, 2018.